Okay, kicking what should be the final, that was weird, playthrough video for this one. Off. Not a lot's changing right now. We got a bunch of Danes that are going to come in the freezing sea. I've got them up there because I don't have enough off the board yet. Basically what that means, though, is killing Danes may not matter. It may not be a desirable goal because they can't produce more troops. They're going to have to withdraw the same amount no matter what. They're supposed to get 6. They've only got 5 on the board, or off the board. And at this point, people are going to be setting themselves up for the last 2 turns. Now, the Danes got their 4 victory points for king. That puts them up to 121.5, which is tremendous. This is sort of, I think, the very naive play, which is to say, when you have the Angles and the Saxons not cooperating, the Danes can break in like this. Most games that I've seen, but it's been a long time since I've played, the Angles and Saxons do work out some sort of cooperation to face the Danes, just because any other answer doesn't work. But the game really breaks down to how well they work together. So anyway, this is, we're preparing for that last 2 turns, where really there's not a lot that happens. Turn 15, there's a king election, which could be the Saxons, as it was historically. It could be the Danes still, if they hold their position, which they may. And then we're going to see Harold Hardrada and William the Conqueror come onto the map with their big armies. And, well, historically, it would be this great fight between the Saxons and really both of them. First the Norwegians and then the Normans. But that seldom happens in this game because the Saxons are usually weak. So the Normans usually just stomp all over the place, and that's where their big points come in. They get a lot of points there, but with the hits that Blue has taken, even though they seem to have a reasonable amount of points, I don't think they're going to make 60 points off the Normans, which is what would be required. I don't think anything has that potential except the Danes, which we saw happen here. Alright, well, I'll run through this and we'll see where we end up. And very soon, oh no, the Normans, or the Norsemen, get to keep collecting points until the end of the game for the territories they walk through. So, as we push to the end of the turn, the Danes went War Bunny. They nearly wiped out the Saxons. This one was left retreating from Lindsey. He was able to get an escape route out of there. And then there was one I forgot and didn't even notice. Did wipe out the Irish. It's not that I'm trying to hunt down red particularly here. It's that I'm trying to hunt down those things that can kind of compete. Getting the Irish out of here was to free things up for the Welsh. I killed some Dubliners as well. Just really making this an entirely Danish territory. How much does this matter? Well, the Danes are less able to hold up to the Norwegians and especially the Normans than the Saxons are. So I don't know how much hunting them down helps. Having the Saxons on board, though, doesn't help. It would be nice to have killed them for the simple fact, and I still have that opportunity, for the simple fact that that gets rid of another leader, in this case Godwinson. The fact that no Godwinson arises for the Danes, that there's no possibility of, you know, a Danish king in England being a power here. In fact, the fact that Hardrada comes in, now this is a guy who came in with the Danish claim to the throne. Well, if the Danes have that claim, it's kind of iffy, but, you know, you got to kind of pass these things by. This is actually fairly common for me to see the Danes do well if the Angles and Saxons can't work together. Anyway, next turn is the biggie, and we'll set that up and I'll talk about that when it comes up. So we got 2 major invasions coming towards the end of the turn here. The Norwegians and the Saxons get Harold, and then the Normans in their 2 areas. Now, each of these powers has sort of a list of places they need to go. So for example here, you need to walk through areas. That's on this turn only. It helps you set up the situation, you know, to match some historical, you know, landing places, etc. I don't know what it really reflects. This is kind of the wankiest part of the game as far as I'm concerned, because you've got what seems to me to be a representation of the overall Norman conquest being taken on 2 turns. But let's see, because this goes 1035 to 1070, so the end of this turn, really, you know, the Norwegian turn and the Norman turn on this last turn on this second to last turn are essentially the very you know, the 1066 landings. You're talking about a couple of months of action where 2 player turns are taking place, and the Saxon turn is wedged in between them now, so you got to assume that they're in that 2 months of action too, sort of, because they can't spread out, defend, or anything like that in that time. Everything before that, all the uninteresting stuff, right, is happening in about 30 years of action, about 30 years. And then the next turn should be the Norman settlement period. But there are going to be a pile of Norwegians wandering around on the map at that point, because these battles aren't one huge stack against the other usually. Now, let me see. Yeah, there's no, neither the Norwegians nor the Normans are excluded like the Romans were from stacking limitations. So it's not like you charge in and hit each other with your whole army and fight it out. Anyway, which is kind of historically what happened, right? You had these huge armies fighting, and then, well, it wasn't like there was this horde of settlers spreading out all over the place while the armies were fighting that had to be wiped out. Then after the fighting, you kind of, you know, assuming that all the or most of the Saxons and all the Norwegians were gone, if that could possibly happen, you would have kind of a historical ending. I'm sure the rest of it feels just as goofy in some ways, is as ahistorical, but at least that feels like these broad movements of people, kind of like civilization does. This period is so disturbing because you know that the military campaigns, the big ones and almost all the pieces, fell very, very quickly. In fact, the Norwegian army left after it was defeated in the field, and the Normans would have probably done the same. All right. Anyway, Danes picked up their 4 points and an extra unit for being king, and we'll go on from there. Alright, well, we've gotten through the Danish turn. They've spread out. They're trying to defend more against the Norwegians than against the Normans. They're granting everything to the Normans. They think, I mean, you look at the points, 70.5, 62, but they think overall that blue has much less of a chance. They're more powerful in victory, in terms of combat. It just seems like I ought to put the stopper more on purple. Almost wiped out the Saxons again. There's down to 1 left, which means Harold's still going to show up on the map, for whatever that's worth. A little bit of dancing going on in here. The Scots and the Norsemen attacking each other for whatever reason. Again, they want their points. Attacking the Caledonians doesn't seem too valuable. The one reason the Norsemen are up here, though, and didn't take boats out last turn, is because they want to deprive Green of the couple of points they get for that. Here's the Norwegian position after their major invasion. They got to hit twice, obviously. They've wiped out most of the Danes. There's still a pocket here, and of course the stuff in the south that they're counting on William to handle. But the Danes aren't really expected to do terribly well. they have the opportunity to get the same points they got back in 13. So if they can run up and get York or something, that's valuable to them. But largely, anything that they gain on the final turn is just bonus points for green that are unexpected. The Welsh, on the other hand, are expected to survive. The Caledonians probably. Some low odds attacks were made by the Norwegians, and they kind of spread themselves out where they're in danger from William. Now William has to worry. So next turn there's a big 5-point king at the end of next turn, not at the beginning, and that king is available to only William, Harold, and Harold. And anyone who's not involved in it, I think, can prevent it. I'm not sure. I have to look up the rules on that. Let's see. Turn 16. If 2 of the 3 leaders are dead, the 3rd automatically becomes king, however, unless some other nation holds twice as many areas as the prospective king, in which case there's none. So it's not quite the same as, you'd expect. It's not like 3 people can be king and following the normal rules. It's 3 people can be king, and if only one's left, he is king, unless someone else would have been king instead by the size of things. Interesting positioning. So basically, William may be interested in marching up and killing Harold, or the other Harold. Actually, he gets more points for killing Godwinson, but killing Hardrada prevents the Norwegians from becoming king. Interesting situation, that's all. Alright, on to the Saxon turn, and there ain't much they can do. One thing I meant to mention, I don't think I did. The Norwegians got their full points for touching all the areas that they could. That's 14 points. Not enough to make much of a difference. They're up to 84.5. Really, at this point in the game, you might be asking yourself, well, why are you bothering to try to win? You should be going for second place. There is no way you can beat green. And that's true. Some games that kind of dynamic falls into play. Some games there's the, oh my god, he's so far ahead, and you keep pounding on him. Why? I don't know. Anyway. Well, I've never seen the Normans do this, and I've never seen them foobar as bad as they have. But they slammed into not just the Danes, but the Welsh as well. They also attacked the Norwegians here with Cav, got hit. Over here they attacked in the mountains with Cav, which is really kind of iffy. They're going at even, basically, against Harold, but they had 2-1, and they were hoping to kill Harold. He's worth victory points to them. Basically what they're looking at is, the only way I have any chance is to slam green completely and somehow get lucky strikes. And they didn't get it. They're down to very little. They're not going to get many replacements because both Norwegians and the Normans get their replacement points based on how many areas they hold at the beginning of their turn within England. Well, William's kind of putzed out here. But the basic thing is, though, they are allowing, by using the Normans so heavily against the Welsh, yes, they decrease their own chances, but they're also, well, they decrease their chances of coming in second, but they are also actually making it more possible that someone might be able to take green down. If people could bag all those green races, it might be a close game, maybe. I don't know. All right. Now we move into the final turn. So the setup for the final turn isn't too different from what we saw before. There's going to be a few Norwegians coming in. They hold 4 areas. They get 4. 4 units. William doesn't get any reinforcements. I forgot about this. I was so fixated on trying to do what I was trying to do that they only get points for they only get troops for specific areas. Oh well, too bad for them. Usually I'm pretty careful about this, but honestly, this game is just so sunk at this point that I'm just not willing to, try to, oh shit, how could I fix that? Alright, so we'll start with the powers and work our way through and then see how this all kind of climaxes out. Well, we've gotten down to the Norman turn. I haven't finished that yet, but the Norwegians... Whoa, these Dubliners, what the fuck? Oh, crap. I counted them as Norwegians because they were mixed in. And now they're not in York, and the Norwegians were, and everything's screwed up. Oh well. You know, it's one of the problems, these colored pieces that all look the same. When they are interacting with each other like that, that's going to happen. I don't know what the hell to do. I'll just leave it as it is and score it that way. It's a definite error. The Norwegians basically swept down and made an attack on Harold. Tried to wipe out or do some damage to the Welsh, but the Welsh just ran away to an equally valued place. Ignored the Danes. They're not worth too much. Those are 2 points for 2 units. Didn't seem like a terrible value to pursue them. Trying to kill Harold, that didn't work. And then Harold went into York and killed Harold Hardrada. That gave him 3 points. Scored here, red is at 88.5. Probably second place. And it opens up a possibility because Hardrada's dead. William can go in, kill Harold, and he becomes king. That's probably his best option at this point. He has no chance really of coming in anything but last anyway. Attacking, but he can't really get there. Attacking the Welsh is out of the question, you know, is not terribly useful. So as long as I stay here, well, red's not going to get the king either because I have a piece and he has a piece. Oh well. Let's do this final battle. William hits on a, and 1-to-1 attacks are bad. William hits on a 5 or 6, as does the Welsh. The Welsh kill William. Some of these times you're just rolling and rolling and rolling, especially in the mountains where somebody needs a 6. If you don't have a lot of pieces, not a lot's changing, and it's a crappy mechanic as far as I'm concerned, but it gives you a lot of opportunities to withdraw in a battle, a lot of choices to make. It's just, I don't particularly want all these choices. It seems to me kind of an inelegant means of rolling, of determining a result. However, it is, you know, a fairly easy one to come up with and seems fairly reasonable in terms of the results it gives. All right, I'll score up the final points and come back to wrap it up. So obviously green won. 140.5 points, has to be one of the largest victories I've ever seen. When green wins, they are the only one who pulls off these kind of massive victories. Usually, I've seen blue win a 20-point victory, but you know, this is 50 points. Purple squeaked out a second place finish, even with those Dubliners pushed out of York. Although, of course, the Norwegians got to do little moves that they wouldn't have been able to do had they not been there. Chances are they would have scored more points, though, had the Dubliners stayed there. That didn't really, certainly their final turn didn't help their point total. I don't know, they probably had king in the bag, which would have put them about 100 points probably, maybe a little over. Red, well, they had been doing very well early on. They didn't maintain that, and 90.5, and blue with 62. Blue lost William, so they couldn't even get their final point for the Normans. Now, this is really the thing. I mean, I've seen green win maybe half the games that I've played of this, and that includes games. Yeah, almost all the time when there's newer players in the game, green will win. If there's very sophisticated players, I don't see green winning very often. Usually that knowledge of how to stop the Danes by building the wall along the coast happens. However, and I usually solo it with such sophisticated pseudo players, in this case, blue and red got to some sort of argument, and that happens. Even with players who are familiar with the game, that can happen, where they just get caught up in this struggle, and the Danes swipe in and take everything they need, and they get their big 60 points or whatever. Here they were worth quite a bit, and you know, they're still kind of knocked down to almost nothing at the end. But it doesn't matter. The points are all that matters in this game. All right. Well, I'll do a review and some comparison thoughts.